What was your most embarrassing, shameful moment in front of a doctor? Went in for a steroid shot for the flu, which of course had to go in my butt cheek. As I was pulling down my pants to expose my half moon to the nurse, I turned my head and asked, "Does it matter which cheek it goes in?" I immediately realized how stupid I sounded, but the nurse got a good chuckle out of it, so it wasn't all bad. I mean, it's not that stupid. Last time I went for a steroid shot, my nurse asked what side I wanted it in. I said, "Does it matter?" He asked me if I drove myself there, and I told him yes. So he put the shot in my left cheek. Glad he did too, cause I definitely would have felt the soreness while braking and accelerating. It was mainly for comfort, but still glad he recommended it. I had a one-night stand and went to the doctor to get checked for STDs. He examined my penis. He told me to follow up with him in 2 weeks. When I went back in, we were in his office, and he had his back turned to me. I dropped my trousers thinking we were going for another inspection. I was looking at the ceiling awkwardly waiting, and he turned around and saw my little wiener and asked, "What are you doing?" I responded, "We're not doing the inspection thing." With a straight face he proceeded to say, "I think one time was enough for both of us." Gotta say, this is not just my most embarrassing moment in front of a doctor, but probably my most shameful moment, period. So I've had problems with constipation and GI issues my whole life. When I was a kid, maybe teenaged, I got really constipated for several days and didn't tell anyone. Then I got really sick, was lying on the couch with fever and chills, and finally revealed what was going on to my mom, who took me to the doctor. I vaguely remember seeing a scan of my bowels, and the doctor explaining how backed up I was. But what I really remember is her explaining they were going to shoot this liquid up my butt that was going to make me go. I didn't realize when she said it was going to make me go, she meant it was going to happen immediately. They wheeled a toilet into the middle of the room while I begged my mom to leave the room, and she refused, insisting I could make it to the bathroom. I didn't. So this is the story of how I took the most massive, gnarliest dump of my life, in the middle of a room in front of my mum and 2 strangers. The smell was horrendous and I shame cried as they wheeled the toilet back out of the room. I was in the hospital a couple months ago for chest pains and was subjected to many scans and tests because I have a heart condition. I had to be given special medication to lower my heart rate for a CAT scan, but the doctor was cute, and every time he walked back into the room, my heart rate would spike. Eventually they had to kick him out. What else can you do but laugh at that point? This doctor tells this story to everyone who will listen, I bet. Best reason to get kicked out of a patient's room: too hot, screwing up test results, or that's a cute story, smile. When I was a little kid, the doctor made me lie on my tummy on his examining table so he could take my temperature rectally, a new experience for me. I didn't understand what he was doing as he inserted the thermometer, but he left me there in the room with Mum, saying he'd be back shortly to take the reading. Somehow, I must have hated having it penetrate my rectum because, as Mum described it, I managed to poop it out, causing the glass thermometer to smash on the floor. The doctor heard it break, and came running back, telling Mum that he had never before had a kid eject a thermometer through rectal motility. Why the fuck were they taking a rectal temperature? When I was 21, I went to the ER for severe pelvic pain. The doctor decided to give me a pelvic exam, which meant I had to lay on the bed naked from the waist down and spread my legs so she could look at my vajayjay. Halfway through the exam, the nurse decides she forgot something and needed to exit the room to go get it. But the foot of the hospital bed was facing the door, so she opens the door wide open and the waiting room is on the other side. All the bored people in the waiting room look up and get to see my vajayjay. Most humiliating moment of my life. Fuck you, oh Blenheim Hospital. What the hell is wrong with that nurse? Oh my god, if this is Athens. Oh, zero part of me is surprised. Yeah, that's actually an incredibly serious thing in the hospital, which probably could have gotten the nurse fired and her license stripped away. When I was a teenager, I jerked off a lot. I can't remember exactly the problem, but at some point I worried I had damaged something. I think I started getting painful urination and this weird discharge once in a while, and I didn't seem as hard. I ended up worrying about it enough to tell my mom, who took me to the doctor. Primary care guy questioned me, then took my penis and brutally squeezed it, I'm guessing to check for discharge. I then got referred to a urologist, who at first harshly questioned me if I was sexually active, and not to lie, I was like 14 and a super awkward, zit-covered nerd. Anyway, no one found anything wrong. I had bad OCD as a child and used to beat off too much to get the right number of wanks in. We're talking 20 plus a day here. Eventually my penis swelled up to the size of a large sausage and I told my mother. She took me to a psychiatrist and he made me a chart we kept in the kitchen to count each time I jerked off. I had to go and fill it in every time I went for a wank. But hey, you got your dick squeezed. So there's that. Yeah, most action I got until I was like 21. Not me, but my mom's friend went to the doctor all concerned when she was 17. This was back in the day, because she had recently started touching herself and discovered a lump near her genitalia. The female gyno congratulated the 17-year-scared virgin on finding her clitoris. Hell, there are grown men who can't find one with a GPS. Throw away because it's goddamned embarrassing. Had lower back pain that escalated over the course of a week. Thought I must have injured myself moving a keg. Bartending at the time. I did not have health insurance at the time, so going to a chiropractor wasn't in the budget. A week in, the pain was totally overwhelming. Couldn't sleep or work or function. I did as much research as I could to try to find a way to minimize or reduce the pain with almost no success. The one thing that did work was rolling on a tennis ball, which would stop the pain entirely until I got up again. After doing the tennis ball thing one morning, I took a shower. Afterward, while talking with my girlfriend in a towel, the dog took a new interest in my butt region and was jumping up to sniff the old pooper. This is how I discovered that I had an abscess, right at the top of my butt crack, that had begun leaking a particularly odorous stream of pus. More internet research led me to the conclusion that I wasn't going to be able to fix it on my own, and that complications might very well bankrupt me if I were to need surgery. Needless to say, immediate medical attention was required, so I went to urgent care. After hours of waiting, I was finally admitted and introduced myself to the doctor, a young, very nice, though extremely flamboyant gentleman. He then proceeds to bend me over the table to get a good look. And I'm sure he got a good look. I have a large abscess that is pressing against some of my nerves, causing the back pain. He then spends a few minutes squeezing as much of the pus out of the wound, making chipper small talk until he proudly announces that he feels he's gotten almost all of it. I am told that I should come back to get it checked, take antibiotics, and oh, by the way, if I happen to have someone in my life that could continue the process of squeezing more pus out, well, that would be recommended. More than happy to talk to my girlfriend. I tell him that yes, I do have a person like that in my life and she's conveniently located in the waiting room. He sends for her and she reluctantly joins us in the office. The doctor explains the situation and she agrees to help. Now it's time for him to show her how. My pants return to the floor and my ass to the sky and the prodding continues. Right as the doctor is telling her, with both of them leaning dangerously close to my furry gas factory, that he's confident that he's gotten it all, but that she should check over the next few days to see if more pus can be coaxed out. Splat. The fucking thing explodes. It squirts pus across both of them as well as painting the wall. Less two human silhouettes behind them. It even gets all over the box of leftovers my future ex-girlfriend had from a lunch. My back pain is now totally gone. There is an endless pause, and we all three double over with laughter, though I guess I was already bent. This is my most embarrassing moment by a long shot. Hope it never happens again. The abscess healed just fine and I didn't need surgery thanks to the spelunking efforts of the doctor and my lady. Also antibiotics. Turns out she was cheating on me at the time, so I can't blame the incident on our relationship's demise, though I'm sure it didn't help. Long story short, doctor shows GF how to help drain abscess in butt crack. It then pops dramatically, covering both of them and the wall in pus. The abscess knew. That is horrifying. Holy God, I am sorry for your embarrassment, but thanks for the laugh. I literally flinched at the explosion. Thank you for sharing this story. I was at work and my day is much better. This is priceless. I went for a physical when I was 14. At that point I'd had my first period, but it wasn't very regular yet. At school that day it just happened to start, and it started with a vengeance. All I had with me was panty liners and that wasn't going to cut it, so I ended up going into the bathroom and stuffing my underwear with toilet paper, like you do. Of course, when I get to the doctor she said, since you're a teenager and you're going through a lot of changes, I like to check your genitals just to make sure everything looks okay. Nothing internal, just external. So I pulled my underwear down and a ton of bloody bunched up toilet paper fell out. I tried to pick it up before she noticed, but she definitely did. She was cool about it, though. Before she left the room she gave me a goodie bag, just a little bag with a sample of acne cream, candy, and random little toys she gave kids before they left, and slipped a pad into the bag as well. What a pal. I had a sore on my penis. The doctor took out a magnifying glass and inspected it, then acted like he couldn't see anything. He made a little smirk and a giggle. I did not realize till later he was making a joke about my penis size. Okay, you got me, doc. While it is a little unprofessional, it's also hilarious. That's really unprofessional, yes, but you gotta hand it to them, it is hilarious. If you think about it a bit, are you sure he is a real doctor? Wow, that's actually kind of rude of the doctor. Size? I was having horrible unexplained stomach pains, on the cold metal table on my hands and knees. Somehow I didn't expect him to very forcefully jam a slippery lubed finger knuckle deep up my previously unexplored ass. Without even a warning, I instinctively kicked him hard in the chest while emanating a bizarre guttural growl. I screamed "motherfucker" in front of 2 female nurses and my overly Christian mother. One nurse burst out laughing and left the room. Being face down, I can only cringe and imagine the other responses. Long story short, which was already short enough. Doctor fingered my ass in front of my mum. I pooped on a doctor while giving birth. I'd been eating a really seedy bread loaf leading up to labor, so it was really lumpy. They pretended like it didn't happen, but I knew. I'd heard from an ob-nurse friend that it happens a lot, like more than 25% of the time. I did too. Doctor had to change her scrubs and the nurse had to carry a puppy pad away that had caught most of it. They were so concerned about saving my dignity they tried to conjure up some sort of alternative reason for it all. I think the doctor said she just wanted to wear a different color for the happy arrival. Lol. Went about an anal problem. The doctor put his finger up to check all was okay. I made a slight noise and he asked if I was okay, and this is when I said "that's nice," instead of "that's okay." I'm sorry, that's alright. In medic school, when we're learning the pelvic, breast, and male genital exams, they're constantly reminding us to stop saying everything looks good, or that's nice, great. The brain can be such an a-hole sometimes. If it helps the prostate is there, it's actually a healthy and normal reaction to feel pleasure from your prostate being stimulated. With that being said, this doesn't change who you are. Take it from a gay man. A little to the left, doc, that's the spot. I went to the doctor to treat my sore throat and I agreed to get a shot of penicillin. If you don't know, this shot goes right into the ass. As he put the needle into my rear end, I suddenly had the need to vomit. I wasn't feeling anything until the exact moment of contact with my cheek. I yell "stop," and immediately try to run over to the sink, where I proceed to trip and fall. Then I just start letting it all out over the floor. I was just laying there on my side blowing chunks with the needle still stuck in my ass. It wasn't one of my finer experiences at the doctor. The visual of that made me laugh so hard. Well, you win the thread. There's no topping this. When I was 13, the doctor saw that I had strep throat. You know that little stick they basically shove down your throat to swab it? I hated that test. When she put the stick in my throat, I had a bad reflex and kicked my doctor in the shin hard. Most embarrassing thing to ever happen to me in front of her. I had an embarrassing thing happen with the strep test too. At age 11 I found out that I had no gag reflex and my mum joked my future boyfriend would be happy. I didn't understand why for a few years though, or why my doctor laughed. I had to get a shot. The doctor left and a super cute nurse walks in and asks if I'm ready. She's filling out papers as I undo my belt and turn around. As I'm getting her hip out, she turns back to face me and says, "Oh, your arm will be fine." So I pull my pants back up and lift my sleeve. To try and recoup I say, "Usually I charge for that, but I'll let it pass because it was my mistake." Lol, nice save. Going to school to be a nurse. If a patient said that to me, that would crack me up. I'd like to think I'd be cool enough to blurt that out in the moment, but in reality I'd probably just instantly die of embarrassment. I don't understand. What do you supposedly usually charge for? I was suffering a terrible case of gastroenteritis. I had thrown up a few times and was still queasy, and yet I had to drive 15 agonizing minutes to my doctor's office. It was an exercise in clenching and willpower, an exercise I almost won. About 2 minutes from the doctor's office, I was hit by uncontrollable heaving. While cruising down a main road, I began vomiting out the window, and quickly pulled onto a side street. As the internal pressure in my colon and my levels of fear and shame simultaneously reached a terrifying peak, I clutched at my door handle and fell out of my car into the street. Wave after wave of puking and diarrhea hit me, with no remorse and no slowdown. In the space of 2 to 3 minutes, I was coated from head to toe with the entire former contents of my digestive tract. Vomit and vomit splashed back on my torso and arms, and liquefied feces all over from my ass to my feet. I was a subhuman beast, on all fours covered in my wrongness, and I still had to get to the doctor's office. Fortunately, I had some thick plastic bags in the back seat of my car, and I was able to cover my seats in order to avoid destroying them. I made it to the doctor without further incident. I will never forget the looks of disgust and the searing shame that burned into me in the waiting room. People beheld me like a horse patty come to life, which at that point I basically was. Brown and orange with burning red cheeks, I gave my name to the instantly pale receptionist and said I am very sick. She had me wait for my appointment in the restroom. I spent the next 10 minutes in their tiny restroom with only my recently deported intestinal immigrants for company. It was gross and embarrassing, but at least I didn't have to see more people. I eventually saw my doctor, who greeted me warmly saying, "It looks like you have had quite a day." After some diagnosing and discussion, he determined that I had gastroenteritis and gave me medicine, etc. The man had delivered me into this world, and handled my transformation into a puke golem quite well. In the following years I've had plenty of embarrassing medical visits, but none will top the time I went to the doctor after vomiting and shitting all over myself. Ah yes, the double dragon. I am sorry you had to go through that. It's horrible. Edit. Whoa, thanks for the gold, kind stranger. With that out of the way, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want more content to keep appearing in your subscription box. Thanks for watching, and until next time.